Mark,
What is happening, Paul?
how much going on?
Oh, dude, I'm excited to talk this week's Dark Crisis.
Yeah, we finally now get to see. It's been a while since we've seen any of the Justice League. We finally get to see some more of the Justice League now, and actually where they are, and exactly what's going on with them. And we will talk about that right after this. So here we are.
Here we are.
We are in a world without a worlds without a Justice League. There's an S
Plural.
there.
Plural. Yeah,
Worlds without a Justice League.
that's important.
Exactly. And we start off with Superman, although he is not the only Justice Leaguer that is in this as well. There's a second story with Aquaman, and we will actually cover both of them. Before we get started, though, make sure you don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to hit the notification buttons, because we're going to have a big drawing coming up, and we'll talk about a little bit about what we're going to have in the drawing. Maybe we'll start at the end of this video. We'll start talking about what we're going to have, but you don't want to miss it. So we are basically now going to where the Justice League is. We're finding out where they are, and it kind of starts with the first panel. We see John in bed, and it's funny because it says Chapter 113. So that's got to be his age, I'm thinking, right? Of course,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, 13-year-old John.
Mm-hmm. And he's screaming for his parents, right? And then what happens is we get a very nice recap of everything that's happened so far in regards to the Justice League, about how they were all basically were killed trying to save the multiverse, and it says they all died, or did they? Or it says they're all dead, or are they? Okay, and then
Long
we
list
see
of them too. It's an impressive list of dead superheroes.
it is. It's almost worth just reading. So I'm going to just read this real quick. It says the Justice League has fallen. In an epic battle against the Mad Pariah's Dark Army, Earth's defenders sacrifice themselves to save the multiverse. Now, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Martian Manhunter, John Stewart, Hawkgirl, Zatanna, Green Arrow, and Black Canary are dead.
And
Or
for the
are they?
record, that's not counting the Justice League Incarnate that also suffered the same fate they did.
Correct. So it goes on, it says, needing power to fuel his deadly machinations, Pariah has imprisoned the essence of each Justice League member on custom-made worlds. Using his ever-growing dark abilities, each world has been crafted from the innermost hopes of the Justice League. What Pariah intends to do with these worlds is a mystery. Welcome to Worlds Without a Justice League.
And like we've talked about in previous videos, how this is the counterbalance to the original Crisis, like where hope is the overall theme in this one, and that's even the essence that Pariah is mining for to fuel his machine. So that's pretty cool that they're kind of diving into that head on. So all of these worlds, I'm expecting to be picture perfect-esque versions of what a world could have been for these characters.
Right. So John is Lois is screaming for John actually at the beginning of the episode because he's looking for his costume. Right.
He's absolutely fear-struck, just laying in bed, eyes wide open, hearing these attacks happening, and you see parademons just eating. Well, what we find out are kids later on an alien world.
Right. And it's funny because what John is going through is something that has been used before in Superman comics about how you can hear everything. But and how a super person who can hear everything that's going on deals with that. And that's a lot of what goes on in this issue. Because you can't help everyone. You just can't physically be everywhere at every time.
You have to pick your battles.
Correct. And so we get basically Lois saying, I got something to do at the Daily Planet. You guys are on your own. Bring something home for dinner, but don't make it greasy, basically.
Now I like the interaction between Lois and John because you can tell it's almost like uninterrupted parenting, because how we see Lois interacting with him in current comics, she like this sense of cherishing him like every single moment because he was gone for so long. You can tell that she's just been mom. She's like I don't have patience for this. He's screaming, "Where's my costume? Wherever you left it. I can't find my mask. Check by the couch." Just it was.
Right.
It feels like genuine parenting and not like some fairy tale stuff.
Exactly. It's the normal stuff of a parent basically saying, "Look, I'm not your maid. Your mask
Yeah.
is wherever your mask is wherever you left it last." Basically, type
And
thing.
did you catch in that panel when he pops up in the doorway to tell her found it, and he says it was by the couch, which is right where she said it was, but his
Right.
right hand is on the door frame, and he's moving through the house so quickly. I sense a little bit of recklessness in his power still at this young age of 13, because where his hand is, there's cracks going down the wall on the door. So him in a hurry to go help his dad, who called out for him, he is damaging the house on the way out.
Mhm. Exactly. And so they end up fighting John and Cal, or Clark, end up fighting what looks like a monster Brainiac.
Yeah.
Um,
This artwork was stellar, by the way. That
yeah.
page turn, that full page splash of them fighting. Wow.
hmm Yeah, Chris Burnham really knocked it out of the park. I loved him when he was doing his work with Grant Morrison on Batman and Robin. It was just incredible.
Yeah,
Um,
he definitely brought it.
yeah, and so then we end up going to Mars, right? We're gonna go
Not
to the Red
Jupiter.
Planet because they have to take Crypto for his walk, right?
So they take him to Mars.
Right, right. And John wants to go further, um, uh, but Clark says, "You know what? We can go further, some other time."
Yeah, being a
Again,
proper parent, he's got homework to do. He's got to study
right,
for a test. Jupiter's nice this time of year, but it'll be there later. We can try it again. Today you
right,
study.
right, and that's when we really start to hear again, John talk about, I hear all these people, calling, screaming, there are bad things that are going on out there, and we can help. And that's when Clark kind of shuts him down and says, "You know what? We'll get to there some other time." Um, and then we get to chapter 2, which is 14. So we're going to follow him year by year, it looks like. Um, and again, John is tortured by these screams in the night that he hears. And Clark comes in, and John really kind of lays into him, basically, at one
Yeah,
point.
Clark reveals that his mom's kind of playing it off. Lois playing off like he's potentially having dreams. And
Mhm.
Clark comes in quietly, and there's fantastic use of lighting and shadows in these to really set the tone. And Clark walks in, sits down next to him while Lois is hugging him, says, "I hear them too." And he's like, "What?" He's like, "Yes, I hear them out there too. But the universe is vast. And I've learned that I can only take care of so much. And I've chosen that this is my home and I need to guard it and protect it." And John reacts, like absolutely reacts, cussing at him, fussing at him. How can you let them hurt? How can you let them die? And the whole 9 yards, and curses his father. And then his dad gets up. Clark walks out, and John's just apologizing to him as he's even out of the room. He finally comes back in.
Right.
It was a tough moment.
Yeah, because John realizes that maybe he pushed him a little bit too far when his
Yeah.
father, he's like, "No,
There's
I'm sorry, I'm sorry."
a big dynamic difference in their personalities. Like, it was very
Right.
telling.
Right. And that's we see one of the first really kind of paternal, intimate type moments from Clark, where he tells John, that you're never alone, you're not alone, you're here, you're with me, to kind of try to calm John down. Um, and then we move to chapter 3, which is now he's 15,
15.
and now it
This is
seems
where
as
it
though
turns up. This is where it turns up.
exactly. Now, I would guess that they're probably on Apocalypse. Oh no, Rand. They're on. No, this is Apocalypse, I think, because Orion.
Yeah, well, Orion's a running thread of what John's hearing here. We've
Right.
got parademons when he's 13. We have right here fighting Orion. Later in the story, he does go to Rand to deal with
Yep.
Orion again. But it's like Orion is on a conquest in his corner of the galaxy. And it looks like Orion at this stage is not only working in tandem with his father, Darkseid, but he's also starting to show signs of looking like his father, Darkseid. For those that don't know, Orion, as he gets older, will look like his father, Darkseid. We learned that from the greatest story ever told, Kingdom Come. But we're seeing where he's starting to get the stony skin and stuff. And the artwork, again, is just the way they introduce him is just him throwing a haymaker and crushing John's face. It looks like
Mhm.
it's insane.
Right. And I also, one thing I really like about this is, okay, so now, John has gone there, even though his father told him not to go there, right? But this really plays into the current narrative of John that Tom Taylor is doing, where, John is a person that he sees something wrong, he goes and he tries to fix it, right? Whereas Clark is much more discerning and is, and not that he doesn't want to go and help, whoever he can, but he has to be much more discerning as to what he does because he knows he can't help everybody. So he tries to help as many people as possible.
And the
Um,
consequences of interfering in things that you don't fully understand, like you're pointing
right,
out in current comics. John had to be stopped from going to save people in Gamora, which is a sovereign nation, and you can start an international crisis. And he
right,
does that very thing by going out against his father's will to try to stop Orion from his crusade, basically.
right.
And Orion sitting there beating the tar out of him. And he says, "What makes you so high and mighty? You stand judge of me? Who the hell do you think you are?" And that's when, out of nowhere,
Right.
Clark shows up and just blasts Orion. Helmet flies off. Looks like his
Mhm,
back almost breaks. Even Clark says, "He's my son."
mhm,
And that was it for that fight. Clark doesn't try to make a big deal of this or save everyone there. Even then, he gets on to John. He tells him, "Get up. We're going home." John tries to chastise him. We have to help them. There's
mhm.
people dying here. And he's like, "No, no, no. You have no idea what you've done. You've just violated a treaty that was set before you were ever born. We have to get home now and defend our homes from this armada that Darkseid sending thanks to you." And
Mhm.
it's that whole choices and consequences.
Right.
It was that art that face Superman was making. The facial expressions in this
Mhm.
deliver so much of the story. It was insane.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean the where he's basically telling him that you really screwed up because you broke this treaty. You can see on Superman he's got the furrowed brow and he's got
Yeah.
it's like just the way Chris Burnham exactly. Jerome, he's like you can tell. I'm sorry if his eyes were just a little bit red, which is what actually John back when John was actually, Clark can control himself now. But when John got all worked up, if you remember back in his bedroom when he was screaming at his
Mhm.
dad,
He was
his
fired up.
eyes turned a little bit red. He got
Yeah.
so fired up. So,
Yeah. John didn't have much to say though after his dad got onto him this time. He didn't
yeah.
push back. He kind of realized what was going on. He said, "Yes, sir," and followed him from a distance.
hmm So now we're on to chapter 4 in this story, and that is now they're 16. So
16.
16, he can get this reminds me of an old, I don't know if you remember, but from the 70, late 70s, early 80s, the Superman mobile that they used to have. That Superman actually flew in for a while. But
For me, it was the '90s toys when they had the Reign of Superman event. And there was the toy line going on.
yeah.
Connor Kent had the super bike toy, and I still have mine. Even it reminded me of that. It made me want to take it
Nice.
out and play with it.
So he gives John this supermobile, for lack of a better term, um, and he basically tells him, you can ride, but you have to stay in orbit. You can't go anywhere, outside of orbit. Um, uh, and he says, and I'll know because I can see things.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny too. How he's like, it goes 0 to 60 in almost a minute, tops out at 120, and John's trying to be nice, and he still looks at it like, "Oh, really? That's pretty good, I guess." He's like, "Oh, that's parsecs per hour,
Right,
not miles per hour." Like
right.
this thing moves.
And he says, "Holy poop!"
Yeah, I wonder if he can make the Kessler run.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so John, he gets his license. He gets his, again, typical parenting moment, right?
16.
16, he gets his license. He gets something to drive, right? And then we turn 17, and now,
Mom and dad, like typical parenting, in sitting up waiting on him to come home.
right, and when he comes home, he's not in great condition.
Oh no, he's tore up from the floor up. He's got
Mhm.
multiple broken bones. He comes in looking like Jason Todd, like because
Right,
his costume is done obviously reminiscent of Robin, but with the Superman. Somebody comes in battered, bleeding, face swollen. Clark screams for Lois. John needs help, and dragging him in the door and laying him down on the couch. And this was tough to read because like you could see the
Mhm.
pain, like just from the way that he's drawn. Again, the artist crushed it, but he's sitting there saying and stumbling through his words, "Dad, I did it. I did it. I fought Orion and I beat him and
Mhm.
I saved him. I saved him, Dad. the kids. So he finally did it. Years of this
Mhm.
conquest Orion was on. Years of John being tormented by hearing it and wanting to step up and save them. Years of not being able to. And he comes in broken and battered, but he did it. He
Right.
saved them. I'm like, Jesus.
Right. And again, this is a typical moment, I think, in the relationship between kids and parents, because each single chapter, I think, is very typical. This one is, at 16 they start to drive, they start to venture out further from their home, they start to form, they're not quite adults yet, so they can't really be on their own, but they're starting to venture out further and further. And it's funny because Lois has to tell Clark, look, he's not you, this is who he is. um
And when she
he,
says it, that like
yeah.
he's been concerned, but she says Clark and he's wincing, and she says that and you just see this. He opens his eyes with a face with absolute acceptance, looking at his son proud. He's no longer looking at him just concerned, nervous. He's looking at someone he's proud of their actions. It's just it hit hard.
Mhm. Right. And then the final chapter, chapter 18, which
He's a
was
man
just
now.
exactly. He's got his own he's got his own costume that is, symbolic of what his father wore. He basically says, you have to be careful, because it's dark outside out there. There's going to be trouble, and basically John says, "Yeah, I know, and I'm going to be causing it."
I'm gonna be making it. Yeah. He tells him it's Dark Side's universe. He's not
Right.
even coy about it.
Right. Um, but
He's getting
again,
ready to join an intergalactic war, participate in a war that Darkseid's waging. So they're letting him go, and and Clark just says one more hug before you take off, and it's an awesome. It almost felt like Jonathan Kent with Clark almost. It was Clark sitting there wearing the plaid and everything. They're in what looks like to be their farm and everything. It's just spot on. Their interactions in this are just well thought out.
right. And we get to the last page of the story, and Clark really kind of says, remember at the beginning, um, they wrote that each person is basically on a world of their own, that fulfills their every hope. And Clark tells us basically what his hope was, and the whole story behind this story is that he didn't miss it this time. He got to see him grow up because he missed it
Yeah,
last
no,
time.
and it was almost like he had a realization. Like I don't because these are one shots, so I think we're
Right.
seeing them play out these fantasies and the final effect of it. Because I think this is all going to come together from these one shots to something with them getting pulled out of this, snapping out of this, something
Hmm.
because they're watching him fly off, and Lois is giving this awesome dialogue talking about what it's like to raise a child and how it's just you constantly trying to keep them safe from one decision to the next, worrying about them just so you can get them old enough for them to take care of themselves. And once they're finally there, you're now just worried about a bigger kid. Nothing changes. And then Clark hit this dialogue, and I was telling Paul before we went live, it teared me up. And Clark says, and I wouldn't trade it, any of it, not a single second for. And then you get dot dot dot, and it's like he paused, but then you get this look on his face, and he says, "I was there, Lois. I was here. I saw him. I got to see him grow into the man he had to be. I didn't miss it this time." And it was telling because had was emboldened. And so I think as he's watching him fly off, he's kind of coming to a realization like this is not real. It's almost like he's coming to his senses in that moment.
Right.
But
Right.
dude,
Exactly.
that killed me. Killed me. He said I didn't miss it this time. I'm like, oh,
Right.
God. Oh.
Yeah, and it's a credit to Tom King that he can write these huge moments when he needs to, but he can also write the really intimate, you know, one-on-one type moments as well.
And he really does have like I don't know I can't say this for a fact, but it seems to be like he has a special appreciation for Superman because now this is a couple times he's done it now, and it's like he honors him with a certain reverence. He writes him as like he doesn't play with this character like he does other characters. It's just
Mhm.
Superman is the beacon, and he honors that properly.
Mhm. Absolutely. Um, so that's the end. Superman. Again, it seems like he realizes something's off, but he seems to be okay with it because he says he wouldn't trade it for anything.
Anything.
Exactly. We get into the second story.
Ooh,
Was Aquaman. We'll get to that, but Aquaman will end up in a much different place than Superman
way
does at the
different.
end of his
And
run.
this one was a lot
Right,
shorter as well.
right. Exactly. So the main story with the main Justice Leaguers is going to be probably about 17, 18, 19 pages, whatever. The backup stories are about 8 or 9, 8 to 10 or whatever. So, but we basically see it's a wedding day. Basically, is what's happening in Aquaman's world. It's a wedding day between his daughter and I can't think of the gentleman's name now.
His Aquaman's mother and father are renewing their vows.
Right,
Andy's grandparents,
right.
yes.
Yeah, correct. Yep.
Atlanta and her husband. I'm not sure who her husband is supposed to be in this, but the whole Aqua family is here for it. And we get total future state vibes because we see Andy, their kid, grown up,
Right.
and we also see Jess or Jesse, who was the Flash in Future State,
Mm-hmm.
that was best buds with Andy. They almost look like they potentially had like a blossoming romance potentially coming. But we get what looks like Black Manta. We get the whole team sparring, working out before this thing. Like they're sitting there just beating the hell out of each other. It looks like Black Manta and Aquaman are fighting, but it turns out with one little piece of dialogue, he calls him Jackson. So it's actually Jackson Hyde in his dad's getup, which is, I think, is dope. I don't know why. I think that's super cool. But you have Andy, his grown daughter, sparring with her grandmother.
Right. And so they're all getting ready for the wedding, and then we go to where the wedding is going to be taking place. The renewal of vows, rather, is going to be taking place. And we see there's a great line that says, there's a lot of rocks here, and the guy says they're all Atlanteans. I don't think they really care too much about rocks.
They care about rocks.
But we find out that one of the people who is at the wedding, who is serving as one of the catering group, is actually the charlatan, and he has set bombs to go off once everyone is there.
And for those that don't know, in this future Aquaman family world, the charlatan is one of Andy's arch nemesis. So Andy, if you were at Future State, is the inevitable heir to the throne kind of thing that is being trained under Jackson Hyde, who is the current Aquaman in the future.
Right.
So this is like one of her big bads that that they don't have stories that exist with this being her bad. It's just we're told about it. So there's all kinds of history with him in here, apparently.
Right. But it's kind of funny because they know that he's there.
Yeah, they just don't care.
Yeah. They're like, I've already deactivated all the bombs. I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, so Jesse, the speedster, she's in the bedroom, baby, was sitting there having a conversation, standing here, but moving so fast, getting all the bombs at the same time, not even missing a beat in the conversation. That was a really cool scene.
It was. Yeah, it was like I said, she basically says, I'm doing it right now as she's having this conversation. And so then she tells everyone, that the charlatan is there, and Arthur, Mr. Curry, you can call me Arthur, basically just wails him with one punch, and that's it.
How good was that scene too? When Jesse finally goes up to him and leans over his shoulder, like, "Hey, how you doing? I can't believe you would want to interrupt such a beautiful day. Look at what's going on. Oh, have you met Andy's dad?" And he's like, "What?" And he grabs Charlatan and puts him in front of Arthur. "Hey, your daughter's arch nemesis was trying to ruin the day." And dips out and doesn't even hesitate. Just throws a haymaker. And he's a shapeshifter who looked like a person, but knocked him sideways. It was the art in this was stellar as well. Very dynamic.
Yeah. And then that brings us to the last page, which basically has the entire family there, and then has Arthur waking up, and he has a much different reaction to what's going on, even though everything that he just experienced on this world was something that it appears he really enjoyed, and it was, according to what we had at the beginning of the issue, was in his hopes and dreams. He basically says, I know you're screwing with me, and I've been dead before, I come back, but will you be able to say the same thing, basically? So he knows something's going on.
His dialogue is beast mode. You get 3 panels of him when he woke up, and it was all beast mode. He says, "I don't have everything yet. I don't have my hands around your throat. Mm-hmm. You think you've beaten us, but better than you have tried, and in the end, you all learn. Not even death will hold us. I've been dead before, and I've come back soon. we'll see if you can say the same thing. Like, he woke up pissed,
Right.
like super pissed. He's 100% out of it, knows who put him here, knows what they're trying to do, and he's having none of it.
Right. And you can only, obviously it's Pariah, but I'm sure that something will happen. I'm sure that probably whatever's going to happen, I guess, whatever happens in Flash that helps get Barry back at the end will somehow tie back into these and help bring these heroes.
Yeah, if they can figure out how to get Barry back, maybe they can figure out in the process that that's where everyone else is and go get them as well.
Right.
So, I'll tell you what, even as cool as all that was, dude, that the page after the last page of this book, I threw my hands. I'm like, oh, here we go, because they gave us to be continued in Dark Crisis, Worlds Without Justice League, Green Lantern. And look at that.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, they're doing, you know me, they're doing foils for each of these as well.
Oh,
that
God,
Green Lantern is going to look amazing in a green foil.
I bet it is. I love the look with him completely greened out. That's how he was in for a minute in the Dark Crisis book. I hadn't been reading the standard Green Lantern series. It just kind of went off the rails. But is that how John is? Like, did he get like turned into a power battery or something? What's he got going on?
Yeah, he basically was. They kind of brought him back to where he was at the very end, but he's supposed to be leading the Emerald Knights. So it almost kind of looks like he has like a lance there, kind of in the on that cover. So it's I can't wait until next month. When we get the second one of these, it's just going to be amazing.
Yeah. It was definitely it was a small week for Dark Crisis with only one title, but man, it delivered.
Right. So next week we have 2 titles. We have The Flash, second part of the Search for Barry Allen, and we have the second part of the Young Justice, Dark Crisis Young Justice. So yes. We're looking forward to that. I mentioned before, right? We're gonna make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you
comment below.
Comment below. Hit the notification button, because we are gathering a humongous prize to give off at the end. And basically what we're doing is whoever wins will get the entire Dark Crisis story. And when I say entire, I mean from Death of the Justice League all the way through Dark Crisis number 7, including the tie-ins, including these Worlds Without a Justice League, as well as some extras that we're going to throw in as well. So you're going to have a huge box that will arrive at your doorstep.
And we might even be nice enough to print out a reading order for you.
Well, there you go. I'm like, it's in every single comic, I think.
It's in all.
Mark will be working on that.
Yeah.
But that's going to do it for this episode of DC Comics Dark Crisis Deep Dive. I am Paul. He is
Mark, but we are
Legion.
And you're now leaving Sector 2815.